Alright, welcome back to another video in the complete web development series, and we are going to finish up our to-do application. What I thought we'd do is just add another section to our website called contacts, and what that's going to allow us to do is to just do some repetition for what we've already learned. So not going to really learn too much new in this video, but it might be helpful to go through some of the concepts again with another set of data. And so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to have basic CRUD operations for a contact list that you can store inside your application. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to switch over here to my screen. And you can see that I am on the master branch here. So if I just hit get branch, you can see that we need to create a new branch. So I'm going to do get checkout -b v12, and I will go ahead and do a get push -u origin v12, and that will push up v12 to my remote git repository. And then what we'll do is we need to go ahead and fire up our Node.js server. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that, and we'll do an npm start here. Once that's up and running, okay, I think that's good. There might be some warnings here, but we'll see what that does. And then we're going to go ahead and start our React application. So I'll do an npm start right here inside of our to-do application. And when that starts, it will open on port 3000 here. And so you can see that we have our to-dos and this. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll log in here. So let's try, I think it was this one. There may be a problem here. Let me take a look. Let's double check. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We also need to go ahead and boot up examp so that our database is running. So we can just boot everything up, or we can just boot up it's been a little while. All right, so now we have MySQL up and running. So now if I go to phpMyAdmin, you should see my database. And if I go to the API database here, and we're going to be, well, our backend node will be adding to this. So it is indeed Curtis at Freeskills. We'll go ahead and let me just refresh this, and there we go. Now it's pulling from the database and we're good to go. So let's go ahead and try to navigate to contacts and start adding that. So if we look here, you can see that it does go to /contacts, but it's still staying on the same page. So let's figure out why that is. I think we haven't created any sort of component for it to navigate to, and we haven't added anything to our switch statement here. So what we need to do here is let's go and add a new area to our components, and we'll just add a folder here and call this contacts. Once we've done that, go ahead and create a contacts.js file. This will be our list view or our table view for our contacts. The next thing I'm going to create in here is our contact form.js. So we'll need that. Oops, I created that as a directory apparently. So we'll do a new file here, contact form.js. And let's go ahead and start building this out. So go ahead and go to the contacts.json or .js rather, and this should be pretty straightforward. We're going to import our use effect and use context from React. We'll also import our main nav. Wait a minute. We don't need our main nav. I am so out of it. I had a 3-day weekend, or a 3-day work event where we pretty much worked, man, all day, every day. And so my brain is really fried. So if you guys can forgive me for that, we will get through this. We're just importing some of the components and libraries that we need for this. We do need context, but I can't add that right now, and we'll just that's good enough for now. So we're going to create a function here, and let's call this function contacts. And then here at the end of the file, let's go ahead and export default contacts like that. And inside this function, let's go ahead and return we're going to return a div. Why? All right, so now that we've returned this div, let's go ahead and give this div a class name. And we're going to make this a flex container, and we're going to align items center. Actually, you know what? I'm so sorry. Just wrap that div, and then we'll do another div in here. I just typed div backwards, man. Maybe I'm too tired to shoot this video. We'll see how it goes. I may not use this because I am crazy right now. I didn't even realize I was tired until I started trying to do this video. All right, and then we'll do a justify content between. And what we're going to do here essentially is this is going to be our title bar. So we'll add an H1 here, and in the H1, we'll just put my contacts. And then we're going to add a link, and we're going to link to /contacts/new, and we'll give this a class name equal to button primary -alt, and we'll put create contact there. All right, so we haven't done too much here, and we don't need to do a lot just yet. What we want to be able to do is get the navigation going. So this is plenty for us. We're going to use this. So if you go back to the app index now, what we can do is let's go ahead and import our contacts from components, contacts, and then it's going to be our contacts like that. And then we'll scroll down here, and we're going to add another route. Actually, we're going to add 2 routes. Okay, well, let's just add one for now. So add a route here, and give it a path equal to contacts, and then we're going to tell it the component we want to load if they go there is contacts, like this. So what this essentially does is the switch reads from top to bottom, just like a regular switch statement. And the first one that it hits that it matches, it's going to load the component for that matched path. And so we're telling it to load the contacts component here. So let's go ahead and go back, and we'll actually can already see that it is working. We have our flex container here. So on the left we have our title, and on the right we have this create contacts. And if you click this now, this does take you to /new, but this doesn't change. We need to open up a form here. So let's go ahead and get that contact form, the basics of that started. Let's go ahead and import use state, use effect, and use context from React. And then we're going to, let's import our form from our, where did we put that? That is in helpers and form. Okay, and then let's also import our button. We're going to need that, and that's in elements, button. Okay. We might as well import. We're going to need this too here, so go ahead and import use alert from React alert, and then we'll import JSON get from helpers Ajax, and then we'll need something later, but that's good enough. So let's go ahead now and create our function contact form, and we will return a multi-line return, so we need the parentheses here, and we'll just throw everything here in a div, and in this top div, let's go ahead and give it an h2 of create contact, and then we'll have some form elements below that, but for now we can just see that the form will just load this create contact. Now we also need to export this, so we're going to export default contact form here at the bottom, and now we'll go back to the app index, and let's also right here, let's go ahead and import the contact form from components contacts contact form. Okay, so now we'll have access to this. So we're going to add one more route here, and so at the very top we're going to add a more specific route, so it'll hit this one first, and it's going to be /contacts. But then what we're going to do is we're going to use a syntax here, or regular expression, that we can use to grab an ID from the URL, from the path. So we'll just use :id, and then if it's that, we're going to go ahead and load the contact form component. Okay, so let's try that now. If we go back to here, and actually, you know what, let's have some consistency. Let's make this contact form in h1 here. So now we have create contacts, and if I click back on my contacts, that still isn't working. Why isn't that working? Oh, I think our menu must be wrong. So if I click here, it goes to contacts. So let's go look at our main menu. We must have a typo there. So in the main menu, yeah, we need to put /contacts there. So I'll save that. Let's go back here. And if I click contacts, yep, now it's working. We can still go to our to-dos, contacts. And again, with this being a single page application, we're switching pages, but it's not actually doing any network requests from the URL bar. It's not reloading the entire application, which is what we want. So now we have two new components that we can get to through this button and through the menu item. So let's go ahead and start building out our form. I think that would be the smartest thing to do, so that we can add a contact to our database. So let's jump back in here, and in the contact form we are going to need our field block that we created. So go ahead and scroll to the top here, and let's go ahead and import that. So import field block. All right, and then what we're going to do is down here, am I in the wrong? I don't know how it loaded that. I'm going to close main nav because I don't need that anymore. So in the contact form, we need to import our field block. And then what we're going to do is just start adding our fields. So the first and foremost, we'll do a field block, And let's see here. This one is going to have an ID, the first one of fname for first name. The label is going to be first name. Is invalid is going to be equal to fields dot fname. Come on, fields dot. Okay, very nice. All right, the reason it's doing that is because we haven't created the stupid fields yet. So let's do that so it stops driving me insane. So up here, we're going to, at the top of our function here, let's go ahead and create some state. So we're going to add fields and set fields, and we're going to get that from use state, which is a React hook here. And in this use state, we're going to create an object, and the objects are going to be all of our fields. So we have fname, and that's going to have a value. It's going to have is invalid, and that'll be equal to false by false. And then error, or we'll just call it message, and that's an empty string. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this, and we're going to paste this 4 times. We'll change this one here to lname because we need a last name field. This one we're going to change to email, and this one we will change to phone, just like that. And we can get rid of this last comma. So here is our state called fields, and now we should be able to say fields.fname.is invalid, just like that. All right then. So now that we have that, we need to tell it the field name its value, which is going to be equal to fields.fname.value. And then we're also going to give it an on change event. And in here, what we're going to do is just pass in form, which we haven't created yet, so this might be a problem. Handle input changes, and we won't put the parentheses there, it'll automatically pass that. Let me spell this right. Handle, there we go. And then the last thing that this needs is a feedback property, and that will come from fields.message. Just fields.fname.message. All right, so next thing we need to do is we need to create this form right here. So the way we're going to do that is, let's see, up here above the return, let's create a success function first. So just go ahead and do success is equal to response. And I guess we could set this equal to a constant. All right, and when this happens, what we're going to do for now is just console log that response. We'll come back to this. So then we have all of the elements that we need to go ahead and instantiate our form. So we'll say const form is equal to new form, and it's going to take a URL. Now this URL is going to be a little bit complex because what I want to be able to do in this is I don't want the URL to just be static. We're going to make this dynamic. And so because of that, let's go ahead and add another piece of state that we can store that in. So go ahead and do const, and what we're going to do here is form URL, and we're going to do a set form URL, and that'll be equal to use state. And for the default value here, let's see, it's just going to be contacts. Okay. The other thing that we're going to need here is let's go ahead and do a form method, and we'll do a set form method. So we're adding a little bit more state, and that default value here is just going to be post, all uppercase. So now we have form URL and form method. So let's go back down here to our form where we're instantiating the form, and we're going to pass in form URL from the state. We're going to pass in fields, and then we're going to pass in the set fields function. We're going to pass in our success, on success, and then our form method. And that way we can do a different form method for our update and for our create. So the reason I'm doing this, and it looks a little crazy now, you'll understand in a moment, but we want to use the same component whether we're creating a contact or whether we're updating a contact, okay? Now, we have this form. So let's go ahead and finish adding our form fields. So we'll need another field block, and we could just copy and paste. You know what, that'd probably be faster. So I'm gonna copy this, paste, and we'll change this to L name, last name, L name, L name, and again L name. All right, we're gonna do the same thing for email. So the ID here, we'll change that to email. Just changing all the references here to email. The other thing we can do here is we could give this a type equal to email as well for this form field. Okay, lastly, the feedback here. All right, and we'll do the very last one here is going to be for our phone field. We can also give this a type equal to phone, just to add an HTML phone element there. Nice. Nice. There we go. So we have phone, and the next thing I want to do is add a couple buttons here at the bottom. So I'm going to add a div and give this a class name. And what we're going to do is this is going to have a class name of L footer buttons. And what that does is create a flex box and basically moves all the buttons to the right. So we're going to use our button component that we created. And the first one is going to be a secondary button, and the on click of that, on click, will be to go ahead and go to, let's see, we're going to do an anonymous function here, and we'll pass in history.push, and we're going to push them to the / contacts. And then we're going to give this text here of cancel. Now it's complaining because we don't have history. So let's go ahead and fix that while we're looking at that. And so that's going to be really easy to do. Up here at the top here, we're going to add const history is equal to use history. Okay. Now that's complaining, and that's because we didn't import it. So what we need to do here is, I'll just do it here. We're going to import use history and use params from React router DOM. All right. Now these little yellow squigglies are because we haven't used these yet, but we will. So, all right. So now that looks good, except for this says push state. It just needs to say push. That's because if you don't import stuff, you know, I'm getting more and more fed up with VS Code. The variant here is going to be primary. And we'll give this an on click equal to, well, I don't need to do an anonymous function. We're going to do form dot submit form, and we won't put the parentheses on there, otherwise it'll just call that as soon as it loads. And we'll hit save there. So it's gonna be our primary button. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that's looking like. So we have first name, last name, email, phone. Okay, looks okay. Let's see, we could probably go back to app index here. And this class name is app. I wonder, what did I call that? I want to make sure I'm right here. Let's look at app.css. Is that all I did there? Oh. Main dash content, do we have that? Yeah, it adds the margin top and some padding. Okay, well that's fine. We have a form that's very large because it just stretches. You could put it in a poster or something like that if you want, but we'll just leave it like this for now. We could even put these in a flex box. Maybe we'll do that. Let's see how hard that would be. So let's go to the contact form here and try to make this look a little nicer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a div, and we'll give this a class name equal to dflex, and then we'll do flex wrap, and then we will do justify. Well, let's just see what that looks like for now. And let's put all of these field blocks inside of that. So if you highlight those and then just drag them in, it'll put them into that div there. So let's see what happens now. Okay. Deflex. Thanks for trying to fix my indentation, VS Code. All right, so that didn't help very much. Let me make sure that I have these flex container things right. So deflex makes it display flex. Flex wrap. Okay. And all right, that's fine. I guess the flex wrap was wrapping that down because each one of these are probably some sort of, let's look at the inspector here. And the form group makes these a width of 100% starting out. So let's give these some margin here, and we could do that. Let's see if we had a gap in here. We had a flex gap of 32. That's a little large. Let's add one more CSS rule here, and we'll call it dot flex gap 18. And we got to add that obviously to the form here. So we'll do gap 18. I called it flex gap 18. Nice. Not really. Naming is hard. So you can see we already have 18 pixels of gap here. What we probably want to do is well, you know, I'm just gonna leave that for now. I don't want to spend a bunch of time on styling, but basically you can make these flex containers if you want. That's up to you guys. But anyways, that's how you do that. And then, so we got first name, last name, email, and phone. Let's just see if what happens here. Make sure that we can type in all of these. Make sure we don't have any typos in our components that we loaded. I'm gonna add myself here as a contact. There we go. Hit save. Network request goes to contacts. It does look like it worked, and it gives me this contact back. So this will be in the database now. So we are good to go with that form. Now, on success, we want to do a couple of things, but we're not quite ready for that, because what we want to be able to do is when we click on success, we want to be able to like forward, and we want to do our dispatch updating through a reducer, but we haven't created any of that yet. So we need to go ahead and create some context. So let's go over here and go to your context folder here and create a context .js. And what we'll do there is we're going to import React, use reducer, and create context from React. And then we'll do a const of, or we'll just export a constant called context equals create context. All right, and then let's create a function for our reducer here. And that's going to have a store and an action. And then go ahead and go down here and let's do export function contact store. And that will be, we'll pass in props to that. All right, 1 second here, I'm getting a phone call. I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that, guys. There was this important phone call there I was waiting on, kind of. All right, so now that we have our function, we're passing our props to it, what we're gonna do here is immediately set up some store, or some state here, and I'm gonna call it store, just to kind of distinguish it a little bit from state. And then we're gonna have a dispatch function that comes from this, and we're gonna use reducer. And when we use reducer like this, then we just need to pass in our function to it as the first parameter, and that is, we just called it reducer, it's right here above. And so we're gonna pass reducer into that, and then what we're gonna do is give it an object for its default state, and we're gonna say total here, and that'll just be equal to 0. And then we'll do contacts, and we're just gonna put an empty array there. And then, so once we have that, we need to return something here. So we're gonna return our context.provider. And we'll give it a value, and the value we're going to pass in is an array with store and dispatch passed in. And then what we're going to do here is we're just going to send in as children props.children. Okay, now this actually won't do anything just yet. However, well, you know what, let's add something to this reducer real quick. We need inside of here, let's do contacts and let's do index, and then we're going to do a switch statement here, and we're going to switch on action.type, and we're going to set a case for set contacts, and then we're going to return store contacts, and then we're going to pass contacts, and that will be action.payload contacts, and then our total will be action.payload.total. Next thing we'll do here is this is complaining because we don't have a default. So let's go ahead and set a default of return store. There we go. Now we're not using these just yet, so we may or may not need those. I don't know yet. Let's just go ahead and leave them for now. So now we have this reducer here, and when we dispatch, we can dispatch this set contacts as an action dot type. All right. So back in our contact form now, what we can do is we can build out that success function a little bit. And what we want to do is we're going to run a function, and we'll just call it fetch contacts. And then we'll do a history.push like that. And then we'll do an alert.show. And we'll say contact saved. And let's give that an option of a timeout. And let's just put, I don't know, 5 seconds on that. Okay. The next thing that we will do is we have this fetch contacts, but that hasn't been created yet. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to create an async function, and we'll call that fetch contacts. Okay, and we're going to set up a response, and that's going to be equal to an await. So we're going to wait for this to return from our JSON get, and we're just going to get from contacts, and that'll get all of our contacts. And then we're going to do is if the response.success, then we're going to do our contact dispatch, and we're going to pass in type, and that type, remember, was set contacts, and our payload is going to be an object that will have contacts, and that will be equal to response.data, and then we have total, and that will be equal to response.total. Okay, now it's complaining that we don't have our contact dispatch, and that's because we haven't set it up yet. So let's go ahead and get that. So up here we can add that in. We'll just go ahead and set now we're not going to need our contact store here, so I'm just put a comma, and then we'll do contact dispatch as our second element, and that's going to come from our use context function, and we're going to pass in contact context here, and that will automatically attempt to import that. So double check that, make sure that happened for you. So that should be good. So let's test that. Go ahead and refresh here, and it's angry at us. So let's go see what errors we have. Contact form line 12. Yeah, so this is, I think this is complaining because we actually haven't provided this. And so to provide this, what we need to do is go to our context provider, and we need to import contact store from contacts here, and then we're just going to go ahead and wrap all of this with contact store, and we'll go ahead and move all of this into there. And thankfully they've decided to mess up our indentation, which I was hoping they would do so that I can reset it, because I'd never get sick of doing that. And now we have no errors here. We do have some warnings, which we will attempt to clean up, but let's go add another contact. I'm going to add Jules here. We'll hit save. All right, and it did go ahead and forward us. It didn't give us an alert, but it did forward us. And let's see if it went and got our contacts here, and it did. And you can see that there are 2 contacts now, so that's good. I think that's working. Let's try to figure out why our alert isn't working here. And so go back to our contact form, and that is because we did not set that up. So all we have to do to make that work here, and I'll put it underneath the history, is do alert equal to use alert, like that, and there we go. All right, so the next thing that we want to be able to do though is, remember how I told you that this form needs to it needs to be able to use an ID to grab any sort of form from the back end, and also, contact from the back end, because we want to be able to edit with the same form, and we want to be able to add to it. So what we're going to do in order to do that is we are actually going to set up our ID. And the way that we're going to do that is up here at the top, we're going to say let ID equal to use params. Now what this is going to do, this comes from our React Router DOM. And so if you look, when we create new right here, right now our ID is going to be new. And that happens because in our React Router, we had that colon ID. So whatever goes there is going to be in the params and it's going to be called ID. So let me show you that really quick. So inside here, we set up this path. And we use this, and this is the syntax for adding a parameter to the URL. And because I've done that, then what I can do is in our anywhere actually, I can use params, and now I have access to ID there. So now that we have that ID, what we're going to do is we're going to use a React hook for use effect. So that anytime this updates, what we want to do is we're going to want to set some stuff. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, if ID is equal to new, okay? So that's considering it being a new form. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say form.clear form values, just to clear everything out. The next thing that we want to do is we're going to set form method, and we're going to set that equal to post. All right. Next thing we're going to do is set our form URL, and we're going to set that equal to contacts. And that is how so that's basically the same that we already have it. But what we want to do is say, hey, if ID is not equal to new, then what we want to do is we want to say fetch contact by ID, which we haven't created yet, and we'll pass ID into that. Then we're going to set form method equal to patch, so that it can be updated through our API. And then we're going to set our form URL to, and I'll use backticks there, and it's going to go to contacts / and then we can use $, curly brackets to use string, our string literal there, and we'll pass in the ID. So now the only thing is it's complaining that this fetch contact by ID doesn't. Now we don't want this to run every single time that anything changes in here. So we want to add a second parameter to this use effect, and that's going to be an array, and we're going to pass ID into that array. So let's go ahead and save this and go back and look at our console now. And it's, first of all, it's complaining that that we don't have this fetch contact by ID. So let's go ahead and do that so it stops complaining about that. And we can just put that right above here. We'll say const fetch contact by ID. And this will be an asynchronous function. And it's going to take ID like that. And maybe I'll just set this up as a traditional function here. So we'll just do async function. There we go. That's fine. I get used to using these newer ES6 style functions instead of declaring them like this, because in React with class-based, it would automatically bind this, or the constructed class to this function, and then you would have access to this dot within that function. But since we're doing functional programming, that doesn't matter. So I'm going to go ahead and do it like this. And then, so we're going to say, hey, const response is going to be equal to and await, and we're going to use JSON get here. And what we're going to do is get, we'll use our backtick so we can use string interpolation, / ID, okay? And so that will get that, and if the response is successful, then what we want to do is we're going to say form.populate form values, and we're going to pass in response.contact, just like that. So let's just test that part out. If we go back here, let's just see here. I'm going to refresh just to see what console is. Okay, so this is ID new. Let's change that to ID 1 and hit enter. And let's see. So that did not work. It may not work when you first load, so I'm going to leave that. Let's see, ID, fetch contact by ID. So this is going to complain because of ESLint. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to put right above here, I'm going to put a comment that says ESLint dash disable next line. And then we'll do a space, and we're going to say React hooks / exhaustive depths dependencies. So what that does, and you can see that the squigglies go away, is ESLint is trying to help us and say, hey, you're looking at something here that you're not adding, and so because of that, it could cause extra re-renders. But I don't care about that. Like, I really just want to pick this one, and when that changes, it should run this, okay? So I think that's it. Let's see. So let's go ahead and do a couple more things here. Let's go back to my contacts, and let's start building that out a little bit. So in the contacts.js, okay, in contacts.js, at the top, let's go ahead and add a couple things that we need. So we're going to say const alert is equal to use alert. This might be a longer video, guys, but I want to just wrap this up. And then we're going to say const contact store and contact dispatch here, and that's going to be equal to use contact, and it'll import that. And then what we'll do is we need the ability to loop through these contacts, but we haven't really gone and gotten those yet. So let's go now to, if you remember, inside of our app index, we had this hydrate function, and we were hydrating our to-dos, but let's go ahead and also do a const contact response here, and we'll do an await JSON get, and we want to get the contacts here. And if contact response is success, then we want to run contact dispatch, and we're going to run that with a type equal to set contacts, and then a payload of contacts, and that'll have contact response dot data and total, and be response dot total. Now this is complaining that we don't have contact dispatch, so let's go ahead and get that. So what we can do is import contact context from context. There we go. So that should be good now. Oh, so we have to add that here, const, and then we'll have our contact store and our contact dispatch, and we'll have to pass that context into that. All right, once we have that, if we go back, we should have that into the store, but we want to be able to list those out. So that's going to be fairly easy. We're just going to use a table. So let me go back to the contacts.js, and underneath our header here, let's go ahead and add a table. And then in here, we're going to add a t-head. And then there we'll add a tr. And then we'll do a th. And we'll just say first name. Now I'm going to copy this. Three, 4, 5 total, and we'll do last name here. This one we're going to change to phone, then we'll do email, and then we'll do actions. All right, and underneath the head we are going to add a t body. And inside of there, we're going to load our contact list. Now we haven't built that out yet, so it's complaining. So let's go ahead and do that. That's going to be super easy. Up here, above the return, let's just add a contact list, and that's going to be equal to contact store dot contacts dot map. So we'll do a map there, and we'll pass in contact and index into, we'll just use parentheses here so it'll automatically return whatever we put in here. And what we're going to put in here is a tr with an index equal to, we'll just pass index right on down into that. I'm sorry, we don't want index, we want that to be a key. So inside of any sort of loop, you need to be able to tell React, it needs to know which one of these update, and the way it does that is it has a key that's unique for each row. And then we're going to add a td. So the first one will be contact.fname, and then I'm going to copy this. 1, 2, 3, 4, do 5, and then we'll update this one to lname. This one's going to be phone. I gotta spell that correctly. And then this one will be email. And then this last one here, I'm just gonna leave blank for now. We're gonna put some, well, no, I won't leave it blank. Let's go ahead and put this in here. We'll do a link. And we're gonna give that a class equal to button extra small, button primary, and we'll send that to and this will be an object with some backticks, and we're going to send that to contacts / and then this is where it's going to get that ID. So it'll be contact.id, and then close that, and we'll just put edit here. So that'll be a link that says edit, and then we're going to do a button. I'm gonna leave that off for now. We're not to that yet. Let's refresh. So what's wrong here? And what is wrong is contact list. Yeah, we're not returning these. Wait a minute. Let's console log our contact store and make sure that we're getting something there. Oh, something's wrong because that's not updating. So our hydrate's not doing something correct. Set contacts. Let's console log our contact response here. We are getting the data back. This should have been contact response, but I don't think that's the problem. Set contacts. I'm gonna pause the video for a minute and see if I can figure out what's wrong, and then I'll show you. Okay, you guys probably saw this, but I made a stupid mistake and I spelled success wrong right there. So I'm pretty confident that's what the problem is, and yes it is. We do have our tables now loading. You can see all our information for our two, and if I click this edit button, it should take me here, and you can see that it has the 6 up in there, and now it does load that contact. And if I go back, we can do that again, and it loads Jules's information. So because of that use effect, and it's listening for this ID to change, it will load the information for the correct contact on that same form that we used to add to. But if I create contact, now they're blank, ready to accept a new contact. So let's just test the edit really quick to make sure that that works. So I'm gonna put Jules with 2 S's here and hit save. And now you can see it has updated Jules with 2 S's. So it's super fast. It is working very well. It doesn't look good right now, so let's see if we can make it look a little better. So let me look here. Go to app.css, and we need to add some table styles to make that look a little bit better. So right here, I'm just going to do table styles. And what first thing I want to do is just for the table, let's just make this thing 100%, make it grow. And then let's do a background color of white. Okay. And then let's do a border collapse of collapse. That's all for the table, but let's go ahead and do the table tr, and then we're going to do is a th or a td. And what we're going to do here is with auto. I didn't type is right there. So with auto, and then we'll do text align left. We're going to give it a border of 1 pixel solid. And we'll use our CSS variable of gray medium. And we'll give it a padding of 8 pixels. Okay. The next thing that we want to do here is we're going to do table tbody tr nth child, and we're going to say odd. So for the odd ones, and for table tbody tr hover, then for both of those we're going to do a background color. We'll use our variable and we're going to do gray x light. And there we go. Now we have some better styles. You can see the hover effects working, and we got you have more. It's going to obviously be striped as it goes down. So let's get rid of some of these console logs that we left in, or that I left in. You don't need to see some of these. Let's see where the other one is. Let me just refresh here. Context has one on line 8. Let's get rid of that. All right. So now what's left to do? Well, we can add contacts, we can edit them. Well, we need to be able to delete them. So let's go now to our contacts list. And in our actions, let's go ahead and add a button. So go ahead and use our button that we created here, and that'll come from our elements button. And let me just make sure really quick that that button has a type. All right, so let's do variant. On this, we'll do variant danger. And let me get back to variant danger. And then did I add sizes here? Yes, I did. Props.size. So we're going to say size of this is going to be equal to extra small. And then let's do an on click here and set that equal to an anonymous function, and we'll trigger the handle delete, and we're going to pass contact.id into that. Now this oops, I put this in totally wrong spot, so get that out of there, and it goes right here inside of our map. All right, so now we'll have those, but we don't have this handle delete, so let's go ahead and do that. That's an easy function to add. So we'll say const handle delete, and that's going to take an ID in. You know what? Let's make this an async function. And we're going to do if window.confirm. We'll say, are you sure you want to delete this contact? This cannot be undone. Okay. And if they confirm that, then what we're going to do here is we're going to do a const response, and that'll be equal to an await, and then we'll use JSON delete. So I'll import that. we're going to use a JSON delete, and we're going to pass that URL with backticks, and contacts is going to be equal to ID. All right. And then what we'll do is we're going to say, hey, if response.success, then we're going to do contact dispatch, and that will be, we'll give that a type equal to contact deleted, which we haven't added this yet to our reducer, and our payload is just gonna, we're just gonna pass ID in for our payload. That's all we need there. The next thing we'll do is alert show alert.show, and we're gonna say contact deleted, and we'll just give that a timeout of 4,000 milliseconds rather, so that's 4 seconds. And then let's see, what else? I guess we don't need this use effect, so we can go ahead and get rid of that. All right, so next thing we need to do is we need to go to our context, and we need to add to our reducer another case to update our state here. And this case will be contact deleted, and we'll just return what we need to do is index, we'll just make that equal to store.contacts.findIndex, and then we're going to loop through those, and then we're going to pass in the contact and say, hey, if the contact.id.toString is equal to action.payload.toString, then that will return that index, okay? Then what we can do with that is we can say, hey, contacts is equal to store.contacts, okay? And then what we'll do is we'll say contacts.splice, and we're going to splice the index and delete 1. So we're finding that index and deleting 1. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to return the new state. So we'll just destructure that store, and we're going to pass contacts is equal to contacts, like that. And we should probably update the total. So what we could do is say total, and we'll just do total is equal to total minus 1. Does that work? No. We have to do store.total minus 1. Okay. So let's see if that works. We're not really doing anything with that total anyway. So it says undefined is not iterable on app index line 17. What? All right, so this isn't quite right yet. Let me look at that. Button extra small. That should be right. But we need some margin here. So let's make sure our button can take some styles passed into it. It cannot. So what we're going to do here is this button, we'll pass in style is equal to props dot, why did I put this props? Props dot style. Oh wait. Oh, I still have this class-based component down here for an example, so I'm gonna get rid of that so I don't get confused again. All right, so yeah, we can take a class name. I don't think we have a class name that'll work for margin, so we could either add a class or add some inline styles. So I guess what we'll do, you know what, just for now, let's go ahead and add this. We'll say style is equal to, and we'll just pass props.style down into that. And then back here in our context.json, or JS, I keep saying JSON, what we can do here is we can actually add a style, and we'll just put margin left, and we'll just give it 8 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. All right, that looks good. We have 8 pixels there now. So now if I hit delete, let's create, well, first let's create one called delete me. We'll call it delete me at mailinator. We'll give this a phone number, something like that. So now we have this delete me. So let's go ahead and click that. And it says, are you sure you want to delete this contact? If I cancel, nothing happens. But if I hit OK, nothing happens. Route not found. So let's look at what could be going on there. First of all, let's look at the headers, and it's trying to go to contact without the S. So that's what the problem is. So what we need to do is update this right here to have an S. Now let's try again. If I delete that, hit OK, and that is a success, and it has removed that from the list here. So that's good to go. So now we can add contacts and delete them. So I can put Bo Jackson, and we'll do Bo knows at email.com, and his phone number is 777-234-8767. So I gave out personal information about Bo Jackson. Do not call him. And there you go. We have Bo Jackson, and his email is Bo knows, and everything's working marvelously. So I can go back to my to-dos. We can add a new to-do, hit create. We can complete those. We can go to my contacts, and now we can edit contacts. We can delete them. We can create new ones, and we can log out. So that is the completion of our React application. I hope that going through some of the repetition here has kind of drilled into your head. And what we can do is get rid of some of these. Let's see how many warnings we have. Let's go ahead and clean up our warnings. All right. Let's see here. So if I go here, 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 I'm just trying to see what created some warnings there. You know, we should have some warnings, but I guess they're not showing up here. You know, because it's a lot of times this is turned on. So I'll just go ahead and get rid of these. We'll leave the comma there so it's not trying to set those. So that'll take care of that. We don't need to do anything in the CSS file. Just check through some of these imports. Looks like we don't need component here anymore because I got rid of that class-based component. All right, so it looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and push this up